I am, as is self-evident, sitting in for Steve. And our next guest, we've got Jeffrey Dorfman, who's been writing recently and taking a look at the minimum wage. And Jeffrey, you're there.
I'm here.
Okay, thanks for being with us. And the minimum wage, I'll tell you, it just seems like such a popular thing among politicians because it looks like you're doing something, and yet they keep pursuing it, even though we keep hearing elsewhere that there's real downsides to minimum wage. Go ahead and elaborate.
I mean, you're right. Politicians like it because it doesn't cost them any money, and it's popular with the public, so it'll get votes. But the public support it because nobody tells them that people are going to lose jobs and that prices are going to go up at a lot of places they like to buy things.
Yeah, and that is the main point that you try to make, you being a University of Georgia economist, on Forbes.com, this idea that, yeah, we really like minimum wage until we end up realizing that we're the ones who are going to be paying for it.
Exactly. People think it's going to come from the rich corporations or some big CEO, but the reality is that's not how it's going to work. People are, hundreds of thousands of people are going to lose their jobs, and places like McDonald's and Wendy's are going to raise their prices. And once you ask people, would you still support the minimum wage after you tell them those things will happen, they don't support it nearly so much.
Yeah, now one of the leveraging off points you used, Jeffrey, was a recent vote in Switzerland, which was proposing to impose a minimum wage for the first time. Tell us about that.
That's right. Switzerland has no minimum wage now, and the proposal there was for a minimum wage of $24 an hour, which seems pretty crazy here, but Switzerland's an expensive place to live. The employers there waged a pretty good campaign, explained to voters how many people would lose jobs and how much prices were going to go up, and the voters voted it down 76 to 24%.
That is really astounding, especially in a country, in a region that is, let's admit it, is really kind of leans more toward the socialist. But a study of countries in Europe, near Switzerland there, it looked at countries that have a minimum wage versus countries that don't. And then it looked at youth unemployment because, the Congressional Budget Office in the U.S. said that if we raise the minimum wage, we're going to eliminate 500,000 jobs. And it's young people who have these minimum wage jobs. And what this study found in Europe was that countries that have a minimum wage, their average youth unemployment rate is 30%. It's 20% in countries that don't have a minimum wage. Why do American politicians not get this and jump off this bandwagon?
That's an excellent question. I mean, what we see, the minimum wage proposals here in the U.S., raising from $7.25 to $10.10, would affect almost 90% of all jobs held by youth. So the youth are the ones who are in line to lose jobs if anybody loses their jobs. It's much harder to get an employer to give somebody their first job when it's going to cost them $10 an hour instead of $7 an hour. And certainly that's what they find in Europe. Youth unemployment is high, not just because they lose jobs, because they never get their first job. Nobody wants to take a chance on somebody that first time when it's going to cost them a lot of money.
Right. Plus, it turns out there's only, I think it's fewer than 2 million people in the U.S. in the economy who are on minimum wage jobs. But you read an editorial in the New York Times a month or two ago, and it said, oh, the great thing is that once you raise the minimum wage, then wages will go up for up to 20 million people. Because if I'm earning $10 an hour and the punk kid earning $7.25 an hour suddenly gets a raise up to $10, I'm basically going to go demand $13 an hour, aren't I, from my employer?
You are right. In fact, the White House estimated that 28 million people would be affected by this in terms of getting some kind of raises. It bumps people farther up. Now, the Congressional Budget Office puts it at 16 million, but it's definitely a lot more than just the people that are currently making the minimum wage. And
isn't that inflationary?
It's hugely inflationary. That we could see big increases of prices at fast food restaurants. You're going to see increases of prices at places like Walmart and Target. Any place where people are earning $10 an hour or less, prices are going to go up.
It's really kind of sad to me that our federal government, in terms of one of the major pillars of its economic growth policy, is to lift the minimum wage instead of doing something to unshackle business, to pare back on regulations. I mean, I really feel like the way to help the poor and the way to help people at the minimum wage rung on that ladder is to let business be free enough to create more jobs so that these people can get better jobs.
Well, you make an excellent point. Actually, my column today on Forbes takes a very similar sort of tack and looks at why does the government promote policies that help people after a bad outcome rather than helping them end up in a good outcome in the first place. In other words, why don't we give them job training and education so they get good jobs instead of giving them welfare or a higher minimum wage? And I posit the answer is because the politicians want the people to feel thankful towards the politicians, so they'll vote for them.
Instead of being thankful toward business. I mean, there does seem to be a certain patronage ploy going on here. This is a patronage thing when you want to raise the minimum wage. And so you win votes, but meanwhile you've done nothing to help those people. Really, you've done nothing to help the economy.
Now, you're exactly right. But if people are not dependent on the government, then they have no reason to vote for the big government politicians. So big government politicians don't want to solve the problem; they want to keep it going.
That's an interesting point. And then you've got this other element. You know, sometimes I wonder, being a member of the media, where these certain new big waves of coverage come from. Why is it that now there's a big minimum wage pressure? And then you look at that fast food campaign where, oh, it's so terrible, McDonald's workers, et cetera, but then it turns out that the fast food lift our wages campaign is being driven by unions that don't even represent fast food workers. They're just looking for a new source of dues.
Yep, the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, is paying for this whole campaign. They're hiring the picketers you see. A lot of those people supposedly striking or protesting against McDonald's don't work at McDonald's. The SEIU is paying them. They've hired PR firms. I get multiple emails a day from their PR firms telling me about their wonderful campaign to help these minimum wage workers. And it's all about SEIU wanting to organize fast food workers and get them to join their union.
Yeah, if the SEIU is so interested in helping those people, how about it agrees to go in and represent them free of charge without taking some kind of union dues? But I don't see any unions offering that, do you?
No, they're definitely not going to offer that. Also, the other thing to remember is even if they don't get these people signed up, if they get the minimum wage increased, most union contracts have clauses where the union members all get raises whenever the minimum wage goes up. So union workers who may be making $20 an hour, they'll get an extra $3 an hour if we raise the minimum wage to $10, you know, even though they're nowhere in that neighborhood at all.
You know, that is a really interesting angle. I hadn't realized that union contracts often call for automatic increases when a minimum wage goes up. Never mind that the workers the union represents may not be in the minimum wage category there. That's quite striking, and it's another reason for why raising the minimum wage can turn out to be inflationary. But I think the thing that bothers me about it the most is this notion that without having performed excellently, without having gone the extra mile, you, the worker, are worth a 49 or 39% raise from $7 to $10.10 because we, the government, have decided you are. There's something wrong there.
Oh, you're right. And in fact, the liberals love to promote the minimum wage increase by comparing it to increases in productivity of workers in the American economy, but they use average productivity. So if Google engineers or heart surgeons get more productive, they claim the minimum wage workers should get a raise. When you look at productivity of low-wage workers, of fast food workers, for example, it's not going up. They make the same amount of burgers per hour as they always used to. So the only way we can afford to pay them more money is to charge more for the products they're producing. So, you know, if they're going to get paid more, we're going to get charged more for their products.
Well, they're raising the minimum wage because President Obama, by executive order, as is his wont, already has done that for federal contract workers. He's already decided instantly, I believe, they're going to get $10.10 an hour, which is not like our federal government has to save money or anything. But the one consequence of all this could be that a lot of industries, service industries, end up adopting robots a lot faster than anyone would have before, right?
Yes, in the European countries with high minimum wages, we see McDonald's has often replaced the order taker, people at the counters, with the kiosk, kind of like you use when you check in at the airport. So it's almost like a little iPad touch screen, and you order your burgers and your fries and your drink on that, swipe your card on a machine, the only person involved is going to hand you the food because they can't afford to pay somebody the higher minimum wages there to take your order.
Yeah, you know, it's an intractable problem because I understand the instinct to want to help people at the bottom of the pay scale. And I understand the dilemma of the working poor. If someone has a full-time job and can't afford to support a family of four, yeah, that's a problem. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Good job, Jeffrey Dorfman. You gave some interesting points there. We'll see where this minimum wage thing goes. And we shall be back. I'm Dennis Neal in for Steve Malzberg. Stick around.